Good press. Hey there and welcome back. Today we are going to talk about a few ways that you might be messing up your press and also hopefully help you fix them. First, let's talk stance. When you unrack the press, simply take 2 small steps back, 2 half steps if you will. You don't need to walk a long ways, and take a nice wide stance. Your squat stance will serve as a pretty good approximation of the stance that you're looking for, and if you want to, you can even stand a little bit wider, but don't take a narrow stance when you're pressing. Next, let's talk grip. When you take your grip on the bar, it's going to be a fairly narrow grip. You can just pretty much reach out in front of you like you're Frankenstein, and that will serve pretty well as the width of your grip. You don't want a real wide grip. It's not going to be your bench press grip. You're going to be bleeding a lot of force outward. So for most people, it's going to be somewhere right around the edge of the knurl. So for a lot of guys, especially, your fingers are going to be right on the edge of the knurl. For some people, for women especially, you may have an index finger, maybe even a little bit more on the smooth part of the bar. It might be a little bit more on the narrow side, but it's not going to be a real wide grip. Next, your elbow position. When you unrack the bar, remember to unrack the bar with your legs. Get underneath the bar far enough that you can move your elbows so that they're slightly in front of the bar. And at the bottom of the press, at the beginning of every single rep, viewed from the side, your elbows should be slightly in front of the bar. Viewed from in front, you're going to have vertical forearms, but from the side, your elbows are going to be slightly in front. Don't make the mistake of having your elbows behind the bar. It's going to tend to cause you to push that bar forward every single time. Next, the position of your wrists. If you make a tight fist, this will serve you pretty well here. Your wrists are going to be in slight extension, as you see right here. They're not going to be in extreme extension. This is what we really don't want to see, with that bar being carried back in this part of the palm over nothing, basically. We want it carried over the bones of the forearm. And of course, the wrist is not going to be in flexion because that's stupid. But this is related to the position of your elbows. That's why we talked about elbows first. If your elbows are back, you're going to have to bend your wrists back. Otherwise, it's going to feel like the bar wants to fall out of your hand. So get your elbows forward. That will allow you to have the correct wrist position. We sometimes describe it as having straight wrists, but that's a little bit of a lie because they won't actually be quite this straight. There's going to be a little bit of extension, but don't get a whole bunch of extension there. Next, focal point. Have one. The focal point will be directly in front of you. Pick a spot out in front of you at about eye height on the wall and stare at that point the entire time, before your first rep, through and between every single rep, and then when you're done with the set, you can look wherever you want. But don't close your eyes, don't look all over the room. Focal point has a lot to do with balance, and the press is already very susceptible to balance issues because the bar finishes so far away from your balance point, which is the middle of your foot. So have a focal point and keep your eyes glued to it. Another mistake is letting your knees get loose, letting your knees bend in the press. Remember, we're doing the press, not the push press. So there's nothing wrong with the push press, it's just not the lift that we're doing. So flex your quads real hard. You can cue yourself to pull your kneecaps up or simply keep your knees tight if that helps. But don't let your knees get loose in the press. And last, the timing of the hips versus the press. So remember, it's hips, then press. In other words, your hips reach forward, and when they slam back into place, in other words, when you stand back up, that's when you launch the bar upward. Every once in a while, this especially happens to new people who are trying to teach themselves how to press. They get the timing wrong, and they reach forward with their hips, and they try to press upward at the same time. It looks really weird. It'll kind of make you want to throw up in your mind every time that you see it, because it just looks like something isn't quite right, and that's what's happening. You're reaching with the hips and pressing at the same time. If this is your problem, tell yourself hips then press instead of hips and press. Again, hips then press. We hope these tips were useful, and if they were, please let us know. Hit the subscribe button or leave us a comment below or give us a thumbs up. We will see you next time, and as always, we hope this helps you get stronger and live better.